What's up, everybody? This is episode 44 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Thanks everybody that's been showing love as of late. And for those who haven't seen my episodes, go check it out on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, and our IGTV page. But without further ado, we have a pretty special guest here. He's played at Grady High School in Coney Island in the 90s. Did a little stint at Milford Academy. Played at Hofstra for 4 years, was drafted into the NBA, and is currently the assistant coach of the NBA G League's Fort Wayne Mad Ants. Today, I give you Mr. Norman Richardson. Norm, thank you for coming on and sharing your testimony.
Man, thanks for having me, Dave. Man, excited to be here with you today, brother.
Absolutely. So let's get started. When did basketball start for you?
I started playing at a young age. I started around the age 8 or 9. I had an older brother that played. He was playing high school basketball at Grady High School, and I had an older friend of mine named Maurice Brown who also played at Grady High School. They both was some of my early influences. So I started playing at about 8, 9 years old, but I got serious about it at age 12. I went to a basketball camp in Maine that my brother set up. Me and Stephon Marbury, we traveled up to Maine and went to a camp together. And I remember watching Stephon and seeing how good he was at that age and how focused he was and how much attention he was getting. And also seeing my brother and Maurice Brown get the same type of attention, it started making me gravitate towards the game and take it a little bit more serious than I initially was taking it. And then I just went from there. I just started playing every day. And then, obviously in Brooklyn, that was a big thing, especially in the Coney Island area.
So now that you're a coach, I'd like to ask, what's Norman Richardson's coaching philosophy?
Oh man, well, I would say this. I'm big on, I'm very big on attitude, commitment, togetherness, toughness. Those are some of my core values that I would like to say. Offensively, I'm a guy who like to play with pace and space, play fast. I think that's fun to watch. It's hard to guard. Make a big emphasis on moving the ball, so a lot of ball movement. And defensively, I want to be tough, smart, and connected. Tough, smart, and together. I think that's big for me as well. So those are my philosophies on the court, and I just like to build a team that everyone has great cohesiveness, and again, like having a great attitude and a lot of gratitude and appreciation for what we do every day, because it's special what we do every day.
So you grew up in Coney Island. Talk about what was the basketball culture like there, and what was it like growing up there?
Man, the culture is phenomenal. It started with started way before I started playing with the Marbury brothers. The Marbury brothers were huge in our neighborhood. Everyone was admired them, was following in their footsteps. And so we had those guys. And then we had, like I said, Maurice Brown, who was a Grady product and went to St. John's. My brother, Derek Brown, who played at Providence. And Jamel Thomas, who played at Providence. Sebastian Telfair. We had all these guys coming from that neighborhood in Coney Island. So, they were a big influence on us. So we almost had no choice but to play ball. We had to play basketball because if you wasn't with your friends. That's all your friends were doing, was playing on the court. So again, it was a great area to grow up in. Had to have a ton of friends there, a ton of good people. Contrary to the fact that people think it's a dangerous neighborhood, we didn't look at it that way. We looked at it as a neighborhood that we enjoyed, hanging out and having a good time with our friends and enjoying playing basketball with a lot of older guys who kept us safe and kept us out of trouble.
So your brother's Derek D. Flight Brown, who played at Providence, correct?
That's right. Yep, that's my brother.
What was it like growing up in the same house as him? What was the one-on-one battles like?
You know what? Hey, man, growing up in the house with my brother, it was pretty intense because he was serious at a very young age. Anyone who knows my brother, he's not a big jokester. He was really serious. We watched a lot of film. Once he realized that I was serious about basketball, he used to keep me in the house, and we used to watch all these old NBA tapes. He loved Rod Strickland. Rod Strickland was like one of his favorite guys. So he showed me a lot of Rod Strickland film and all these different players he would go through Scottie Pippen was his favorite player, so he showed me a lot of Scottie's film. So he was a guy who we used to have these long conversations for hours. And me and him we didn't really play a lot of one-on-one, but he would take me to the court and just put me through all these crazy drills. And, but what I loved about him was he instilled confidence in me and made me believe that I can play at the highest level. And he knows that, I'm always indebted to my brother. I love him to death. And he was the first person to introduce me to this game. So I'm forever indebted to him for that.
Shout outs to D Flight. So what were some tournaments that you loved playing in as a youth?
Oh man, we had some phenomenal tournaments growing up there. We had a lot of tournaments similar to what the kids have now. They got some tournaments that's different than it was back then. I think the tournament today is just so more magnified because you got these great players playing in like Dykeman and all these great and Gersh, all these great places around the city that they can express their talent. We had those tournaments as well, but it was at a broader scale. It was like a way bigger scale. Meaning there was the citywide. I love playing the citywide back in the day. That was a fun tournament playing. We played in this place at Wingate Park. They had a tournament at that park. We would play at they had a little gym up in I guess it was called UDC, I think it was.
Yeah.
Play up there. We played at all these Rucker. Rucker was a tournament I loved playing in back in the days. So it was a ton of tournaments, and we had one in Coney Island. Coney Island tournament. It was called I think it was called Long Lives for Youth or something like that. It was a really big tournament that a lot of people used to come and play in that tournament. So there was tournaments all throughout the city that we enjoyed playing with, and I played with Riverside Church, so they was involved in a lot. So it was a lot of tournaments there. It was a fun time. I always call it the golden day of high school basketball in New York City.
I believe it, because that database that I find it on, well, two of the databases I find the stuff on, it has a lot of good stuff about the 80s and 90s. So yeah, it was the golden day. It was the golden days. But so you pretty much answered one of my questions. Riverside Church. Talk about playing for Riverside.
Man, playing back in those days, there were literally four AAU programs in New York City that you were able to play with. It's not like today where you have so many programs that you can choose to play with. It was Riverside Church, Gauchos, Broncos, Brooklyn USA. 5 Brooklyn USA. And then they had the Long Island Panthers. Those are the 5 programs that you can play with. So, you didn't have many options. So you had to make sure you were good enough
to play on at least one of those teams.
Play with one of those teams, exactly. And I was able to play with Riverside and playing with that team. With guys like Elton Brand, Ron Artest, Chutney Gray, Kevin Morris, Tyrone Grant, Richie Parker. All these guys I had a chance to play with coming up in that Riverside era, and I think that was Eric Barkley. These were some really tough players. We had some tough battles with some of the best teams around the country, and we got a chance to go to France in high school with Riverside. So Riverside was one of the better programs in the country at that time, and I was very fortunate to play with them. If you had one of their book bags, everybody looked at you as like one of the best players walking around the city. So we always fighting to get one of those book bags. So when I made that team and they asked me to play with them and I was able to travel with them, that was one of the best experiences of my young life.
I can only imagine all those trips from Coney Island all the way up to you may not even be able to call that Harlem, but yeah, the west side of Harlem.
Yep.
Well, at least that area in Harlem. That was
Yep.
I'm sure that was a long trip for you.
Oh man, my mother used to be worried many nights. If you think about it, we used to play in tournaments and get back to Riverside. They used to drop us back off at Riverside Church at 10 at night, 11 at night sometimes, and we got to jump on the train and head all the way home. And me and Tyrone Grant, I think, me, Tyrone, and Eric Barkley were like 3 of the only guys from Brooklyn that was really involved in that, with the Harlem group. Most of the guys played with Brooklyn USA at the time. And we were traveling, way far. And me living all the way in the tip of South Brooklyn, it was the longest ride to get home. But again, at that time, we didn't mind it. We was just taking the trip, having fun. We never thought about being in danger or nothing like that. So, and then they had a really good group. Ernie Lorch did a good job of making sure, he took care of us too.
What was Mr. Lorch like?
He was good. He was good with me. Mr. Lorch was a real good dude. Again, he took care of his players. He made sure we was we were good. He took us all around the country, gave us a chance to go to another continent, Europe, in high school. So, I mean, Mr. Lawrence was a real good dude in that fact. And he also sent me to prep school. I needed a year of prep school. Obviously, you'd see all the articles that come out about me academically, so I needed to go to prep school. So
we're gonna get into that.
Okay.
But were you a part of that 1996 team that only lost one game with Riverside?
No, I didn't play with that team. I actually played with the older team. So I played with Riverside. The 96 was my prep year. So I didn't play with Riverside during my prep year. I actually went and played with the Broncos my last year in high school. So I went to play with them. They had a kid named Anthony Perry from New Jersey.
Yeah. St. Anthony's.
Juan Arrington. Yep. So they had that team. Tariq Kirksey, I think, was on that team. A couple of guys like that. So we played with them that last year, but I wasn't on a part of that team. Those are the younger guys.
So what was it like playing for Doc Naselli?
Man, I gave Doc hell. Rest in peace to Doc. I remember playing for the Broncos and thinking how different it was than playing with Riverside. You know, in Riverside, I was kind of spoiled. You know, I knew everybody. I knew exactly how they played. Thurman Player was our head coach, so Thurman used to let us just play. He made sure everybody would eat. You know what I mean? He made sure we get on the court. He'd run a play for you. Whoever was feeling that day, he would go to you. And when I was with the Broncos, it was a totally different system. Like they were running like these slow plays, and you know he wasn't really into like ISO basketball, and that's what we were used to at Riverside. You know, playing a lot of isolation basketball and going at giving it to the hot hand and letting them just operate and go. So I remember just disagreeing with Doc on so many different levels, and Doc was one of the guys I think who was giving me kind of a bad rap to a lot of colleges, but deservedly so. I wasn't being the best guy, so I deserved all the stuff that Doc did. But it was a good experience. It was a different experience, and I got a chance to meet some new people and have some fun on those trips that we took together.
So let's get to high school.
Yeah.
When you were in 8th grade,
yeah,
like how hard was it? Like, which? Because I'm pretty sure that there were no other schools in the area that you probably thought of except for Lincoln and Grady. Like, what made you decide to choose Grady over Lincoln?
So it's funny. I before I got to high school, I was playing with Brooklyn USA, and guys Ziggy and Tippy, after they was coaching me, and they would always mention Catholic schools to me, like Severian or Bishop Lachlan or Bishop Ford, and I always used to say in my head, like, I'm never going to a Catholic school. I'm from Coney Island. We're going to either Lincoln or Grady. And and so when it came out to me picking my schools, Lincoln was my zone school, so I automatically was going to get accepted to Lincoln. Grady I picked because my brother and Maurice Brown went there, and those are my two idols growing up. And those are the only two schools I was interested in going to. I actually didn't get accepted to Grady, so I was supposed to go to Lincoln. And I remember thinking, like, I didn't want to play at Lincoln with, like, under the Marbury's umbrella, because they had Lincoln, like, sold up, and everybody was about the Marburys. And I always thought, like, if I went to play under his shadow, Stephon Marbury's shadow, I would never get the attention that I needed. So me and my brother and Coach Jack Ringle, who was the coach at the time, rest in peace to Jack Ringle, he helped me get into Grady. They pulled some strings. I don't know what they did, and I wound up getting accepted into Grady. And that's how I got to Grady High School. So
you talk about your 4 years at Grady.
Okay. Oh man, so I get to Grady High School. Obviously my brother played there prior, so I knew a lot of people. A lot of Coney Island kids were going to Grady. So I knew a lot of people in Grady, and a lot of friends I had in Grady. And my brother introduced me to some guys prior to me getting there. So, and I knew the coach. So when I got there, I was the only freshman who made the varsity that year, which is pretty cool. I made the varsity team, but the one thing that hurt me at Grady was my academics. You know, I was awful academically, and not in the classroom per se, but I never went to class because I had so many of my friends were cutting class. We had a park. Tyrone Grant was part of it. He was with me. We were cutting class together. And we used to go to a park and play basketball and stay out and cut class all day. And when it was time for me to present my grades, I was passing just enough to stay eligible. Mm-hmm. And I remember my junior year when we had a really good team. I think it was Tyrone Grant's senior year. We were projected to be one of the best teams in the city, and we had a chance to go to the Garden that year and compete with Lincoln and Robeson, all the good schools. And I remember not going to class the first couple of months, and I got sick with pneumonia. And when I got sick with pneumonia, I was in the hospital for 2-3 weeks. And I remember we tried to go to the teachers to help us, and none of the teachers was willing to help me. With my academics, like as far as like help me catch up, because I never was going to class, and I wound up being ineligible that year, and it kind of hurt me my junior year, and it hurt our team because they wound up losing in the semifinals to Paul Robeson, I think it was, and I think it hurt our team that year because I think I could have been an important piece to that team. But I picked my grades up my senior year. My brother got on me, stayed on top of me. Jack Ringle made sure I was going to class, and when I went to class, I did a decent job. But it just was the tough part was trying to keep me in class. And my senior year, we got a chance to go to the finals. We lost to Erasmus High School, who was a really good team, with Damon Escoffi, Calvin Bowman, Andre Clark. And we lost to that team in the finals. But again, I had to do a prep school year because of that. And when I got to prep school, I really started taking my academics serious.
Now before we get to the prep school, let's talk about 1996. You were all Brooklyn and all city that year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the championship game at the Garden. Like, how did it feel being on that court and then losing to Erasmus?
Oh man, that was one of the toughest losses I ever had in my entire basketball lifetime. My basketball career, I've never lost. We were up 12 points with 4 minutes left, so we felt we had the game in the bag. In fact, the people already voted me to be the MVP of the game. It was already over. They thought the game was over, and we wound up we just had a mental meltdown. We just collapsed, and myself included. We turned the ball over, and we just started just making some awful plays. And Damon Escoffi, and he capitalized on it. He hit 2 big threes, and he picked up his intensity. He always been a great competitor, a guy who was always competing and was tough to compete against. So when we lost our mental, he took advantage of that, and Calvin Bowman took advantage of that. And those guys, deservingly so, they wound up pulling the game out and winning that game, and we lost. And that was one of the toughest games. It was a great experience playing on the Garden floor in high school in front of 8,000, 10,000 people. But to lose that game, it stung me for a really long time. And, I'm recently just, getting over that game. But kudos to Erasmus. That's my mother's alma mater, too. So she was kind of torn also.
Oh, wow. So she was voting for you and Erasmus that day.
Yeah.
Damn, that makes it all worse.
I know. I know, right? I know, man.
But, so talk about Jack Ringle.
Obviously Jack was great for me. One of my first, one of the first people who really believed in me as a not just as a basketball player, but as a student. He always encouraged me to do better. Was always on my side, no matter what happened. He always was on my side. Always tried to help. I'm always grateful to him and his family, because they treated our family like we were family. Jack was the guy who put me on varsity my freshman year. He always tried to put my name out to Tom Konchowski and all the scouts that were scouting during those times. And in fact, he was one of the reasons I got a scholarship to Hofstra. Mm-hmm. Hofstra basically didn't want me to come there. So he was behind that. So he was a big influence in my life. And again, man, I rest in peace to Jack Ringle, who without him, I don't know if I would have been able to get to the college level.
Wow. Rest in peace to Jack Ringle. So let's get to the prep school thing. So you never really graduated from Grady per se, right?
No. Didn't graduate from Grady. No.
Well, fortunately, you didn't have to go through the whole Regents thing to graduate.
Right.
And it worked out for you because you were 17 during your senior year. So the prep school thing definitely helped you out.
Yes. It helped me out big time. I remember getting there and hating it right away. I hated it. I think what helped me, Trevor Diggs went to prep school with me. Sharif Fordham was my prep school teammate, and Eric Williams from Robeson. So I had Sharif Fordham played on my AAU team, so I knew him for the longest. Trevor I played with as a kid also, so I knew him for the longest. And Eric I played against. So When I got to prep school in Connecticut, and they had us in these really like rundown dorms. They had a curfew, and we couldn't go anywhere. It was just we had this small barnyard gym. It wasn't the best setup, and I remember getting there and saying to myself, I hated it. I hated it. And we wound up meeting this family out there who basically like helped me while I was there. They took me in, and we can go to their house and spend some time with them. Had a guy named Michael Sullivan that I met out there from Connecticut, and he was on our team as well. And he was good also. He helped us a lot, with adjusting to that prep school life. William Mensah, who's a ref in the G League, was on my prep school team. But that was a tough year for me, Dave. But I knew in order for me to get to college, I had to focus and grind that year out and sacrifice that year. I went home every chance I got. We would jump on the train and go back home. But we played against some really good competition. Ricardo Greer, Cheshire Academy, MCI, we played against. We played some really good schools during that time because we didn't have a league. We just played 40 games that year and traveled all around. And I thought that was the most fun. And it actually helped me when I went to college because it helped me from a maturity standpoint because I learned how to be away from home a year prior to me going to college. So that was fun. And
so then, how was your recruitment during the prep school year?
So I was being recruited pretty heavily early on. Like going into my senior year at Grady, schools were on me. I had Big East schools. I had some Atlantic 10 schools. I had some a couple of schools in the South like SEC. Florida was recruiting me. But when I didn't qualify after my senior year, a lot of schools, took a step back.
They backed off.
Right, they backed off. And when I got to prep school, I remember West Virginia was recruiting me, Iona, East Carolina, Cleveland State. Those are schools that started getting to the play because no one thought I would qualify. That's how bad my academics was at the time. And so I remember we had a teammate at Grady named Roberto Gittins. He signed with Hofstra early on. And I remember not hearing about Hofstra until Speedy went there, and then Roberto signed there. I was like, wow, I would like to go to Hofstra with my ex-high school teammate. And I remember trying to reach out. I reached out to my high school coach to ask for Hofstra to recruit me, and went through that process. So it wasn't the greatest process for me recruiting wise because I didn't have a lot of schools. I had literally 4 schools that was recruiting me. And I went on all those visits. DePaul came in late, and I wound up not taking the visits.
Go.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, let me make sure. So the recruiting process wasn't very extensive. It was just one of them things that we had plans on our team that was getting recruited pretty highly, but they were doing better academically than I was. And again, like I said, Dr. Naselli put a word out that I had an attitude problem, which kind of hurt me also in my recruiting process.
That's crazy. Like, why? So basically, just because of all those quarrels with him, he tried to basically blacklist you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I was again, I wasn't the best guy with him. So if schools called about me to him and asked about my character, I'm sure he was going to tell them the truth. I guess he didn't want to, he didn't want to lose the trust in the schools that he was,
dealing with.
Right, because he had other players that he had to vouch for as well. So I get why he did it. You know what I mean? I could have been a way better, guy with him. You know what I mean? And played. I did some really things with him. I wasn't the best guy with Dr. Naselli. I can say that. I can say that now looking back.
Do you think that if you had never had to play that year with Doc, do you think like everything would have went well with Riverside and they would have sent you to whatever school you wanted to go to?
Yeah. It would have. I would have got recruited a lot higher. I think it would have been. I think back in those days, coaches at the AU level had. I'm not gonna say more influence than they do today with college coaches, but college coaches really respected them. These guys were doing it for many years. Doc was coaching for many years before I got there. So he knew these guys way before I knew them. So his word held value with them, right? His word held a lot of value. So he told Jay Wright, who I eventually played for, the same thing. That's how I knew. Jay Wright told me the story. So I found out from Jay Wright that Doc was doing these things. I didn't know prior to that. And when he told me, I'm like, oh, okay. And so I found out Doc was telling coaches that, to stay away from me because, I probably wouldn't be good for their program.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So talk about the 4 schools that were still interested in you at that time.
Yeah. So my first visit I ever took was to Cleveland State. I went to Cleveland. Rolly Massimino was the head coach. Harold Presley was the assistant coach, and he was recruiting me pretty heavily. And I remember taking a visit there in November. It was so cold. It was snowing. I knew right away I wasn't going there. I knew it. I said, there's no way I'm going to Cleveland State. It's too cold. It's too far. It's far away from home. I'm already away from home in prep school, so I'm not feeling this at all. So I remember I went back home and I immediately said to myself, I'm not going there. I told our coaches I wasn't going there. Then I went to West Virginia, which was a really, really, really good visit. They took me to a football game that was unbelievable. I'd never been to a college football game in West Virginia. It was a really good program, and it was wild. It was a wild game, and took me out to a couple of parties, and I really liked it. But for whatever reason, after the visit, I remember they were on me to sign, like to commit at the time, and I didn't commit. And when I left, I guess they got someone and stopped recruiting me.
Wow.
And they stopped recruiting me. So that fell through. And my next visit was East Carolina. This guy named Raphael Edwards was playing there.
Right.
And he was my host. I knew Raphael from Brooklyn, and he was my host. And that was a really good visit. I had a good time with Raphael. And I actually was going to sign with them. I was going to sign with them. And then I came back home, and my high school coach, my Milford Academy coach told me to wait it out. So don't commit yet, just wait it out. And I kept waiting, and again I went to Jack Ringo, told Jack, can Hofstra get involved with me? And then they didn't want to get involved. They wouldn't get involved with me. And then he convinced them to come watch me. Jay Wright came out and watched me play against Cheshire Academy. I didn't have a great game, but he thought that I thought I played hard and I was competitive, and he eventually offered me a scholarship. And I didn't even have to visit Hofstra. I committed to him right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
So talk about, your time at Hofstra. Well, beginning to end.
Okay. So I signed with Hofstra. I signed with Hofstra. I remember I signed with them in April. I signed up with them on the back of my friend Maurice Brown's car. They didn't even come upstairs to meet my parents. I just signed with them and they went on. And so I was excited to go to Hofstra. I remember getting there in the summertime, and they enrolled us in summer school and gave us a little job on campus that we were doing. And I remember Jay Wright was always the smooth, good-looking coach who dressed really well. And I thought he was the coolest dude ever. And I remember getting there, and he was intense. He was so intense. He was one of the hardest working guys I've ever seen in my life. He was just getting after it. And the first day of a meeting, I came late to a meeting, and he chewed me out. Him and Tom Pecoro just cursed me out and chewed me out. And I knew right away college was no joke. And we started practicing, and practice was hard and very competitive. Speedy Claxton was unbelievable. I remember thinking I played against him through high school, and I didn't know how good he was until I got to Hofstra. I was like, wow, this guy is unbelievably good. And it was great. My freshman year, I didn't start right away. I started midway through my freshman year, and got my feet wet. And then my sophomore year, I started, made all conference from my sophomore year, always through my senior year, was player of the year my senior year. I won a Haggerty Award. And I really, it was one of the best 4 years of my life. I met some of my best friends at Hofstra, Jay Hernandez, Speedy Claxton, Roberto Giddens, all those guys are like brothers to me. And I played for one of the best coaches in college basketball, Jay Wright, which I learned a ton from. And that was a great staff. So college was great. And, I wouldn't trade that for the world.
So your junior and senior years, I'm looking at the stats right now. You were really going off the final 2 years.
Yeah.
And those years you went to the NCAA tournament. Talk about winning the American East Conference Championship 2 years in a row and making it to the big dance.
Man, it was. I mean, we had a vision when we first got to Hofstra. I remember we had a vision. Coach Wright laid this plan out for us and gave us the vision, and he gave us a lot of confidence that we can beat anyone. And when we got to Hofstra, we knew my sophomore year we were good, but our junior year we were like we're gonna be really good. Speedy is the best player in the conference, one of the better players in the country. I was emerging. Roberto Giddens was emerging. Jay Hernandez joined the team and was able to play because he was a transfer. Rick Apodaca joined our team, so he was an unbelievable freshman coming to play with us. Greg Springfield, who I always say was the key to our championship runs. So we had a really good mid-major program that was growing, and we took off that season. We beat a lot of good teams, Rutgers, Georgia Tech. So we knew we were primed to make a run for the NCAA tournament. So I remember when we got to the finals, I mean, we were focused. We were focused. We were like, the team, us and St. John's were the two teams in the metropolitan area that everyone was watching. And it was a hell of a run. And we played Delaware in the finals. And when we won that game versus Delaware in the finals and got to the NCAA tournament, the campus was electrified. I mean, everyone on the campus was going crazy. We were all over the media locally. And I never forget that first tournament run we had. It was one of the best feelings that I've had as a basketball player. It was one of the better games that we played too as a team.
And then talk about, before we leave off the Hofstra topic, talk about playing for Jay Wright as a whole.
Man, playing for Jay Wright was great. I mean, the stuff that he instilled in us, these are lifelong lessons. Like having the right attitude. Like he still preaches this to his players at Villanova today, and I think that's one of the best. I mean, one of the most important characteristics you can have. I mean, you can control is your attitude, right? Like you can control that every day, and I think that's the one thing he instilled with us. No matter what's going on in your life, what all that matters is how you approach it, how you deal with it. And I think that was something that he sold to us, and something that I really took with me after Hofstra. And I still use it today as a coach. I use it with my family. And I think it's something important. You got to have the right attitude. He was an unbelievable motivator. And he was a coach that was growing X and O wise because he was a tireless worker. And so he taught us those things, how to be a good person, how to make sure you keep good relationships with anybody. It didn't matter if it was the janitor or it was the president of the university. Always keep a good relationship with everybody, and treat everybody with respect because everyone's a human being. So those are things that he instilled in us and things that we took with us moving forward. If you speak to any one of us that played for Jay for 4 years or any amount of time, they will always tell you that he instilled great values into his players because he was a pretty genuine guy. And, I'm always indebted to him for that. And also he had a great staff. Tom Pecora was to this day, one of my favorites ever. I love Tom Pecora. Brett Gunning, who's with the Rockets now. All these guys, Eugene Burroughs, these guys are all guys that I had a chance to be under and play for, and they taught me a lot of good things. But Jay Wright knows how to put a staff together and instill great things into people.
Shout outs to Jay Wright, man. Every time I see him, always genuine. Good. He's a good people person. I could definitely say that.
No doubt about it, Dave. No doubt about it.
So the 2001 draft comes around. Like, what was the pre-draft situation looking like?
Oh man! So after the season, after we lose to UCLA in the tournament, I get right to it, and it's different than it is today. Today, everyone has like these trainers, these personal trainers, and agents hooked you up with these trainers. We didn't have too much of that. So what I did was after the season, I got with one of our assistant coaches, David Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Got me in the gym, and I started working with him on my pre-draft stuff. Just lifting weights and doing individual workouts with him until the pre-draft camps came. And the first place I went was Portsmouth. Got invited to Portsmouth and got there and played pretty well, and was able to show scouts that I was capable of being an NBA player. And then I went to Chicago pre-draft camp, and played there where where everyone was either there to to do their physicals or they were there to play. And I had a chance to play there. Actually, Kenny Satterfield was my teammate at the Chicago pre-draft camp. Meaning K Sat was teammates, and I enjoyed playing with a fellow New Yorker who was looking out for me. So we had a good time there. It was a good process, and I thought I played well. For a mid-major guy, it helped me confidence-wise, and and again after that, the Pacers gave me a chance and wound up bringing me on. So that was a really good thing.
How tough was it not being drafted?
I always say it's the toughest thing is to not be drafted. The toughest thing is to not be drafted and make a team, because all odds are against you. If you get drafted, obviously if you draft someone, you're pulling for them. You want them to do well. So you're giving them all the resources and you're giving them all the playing time and you're trying to do everything to help those players, because those are the players that you're hoping to invest in. Me, I wasn't a player that they were investing in initially. So I had to prove myself, and when I went to camp with to mini camp with them, and made the summer league team. I was playing behind Adrian Griffin, who was a veteran at the time, who's one of the assistant coaches with the Toronto Raptors, and he was playing in front of me. He was a shooting guard, and I was backing him up. And we went to summer camp, and he played one game and got signed by the Boston Celtics, which was a blessing in disguise for me. It was a total blessing, because when he played one game and left, I was able to step into that position and be a starter now on the Pacers Summer League team. And I took advantage of it. I played well that year. I really shot the ball well. And I remember right after my last game in the Summer League, a couple of days later, they reached out to my agent and wanted to sign me to a deal. And they wanted to sign me to a partial guarantee deal. They gave me $100,000 to come to camp. And so I knew once I got money to come to camp, I knew there was an opportunity with me, for me to stick on that roster. So when I got the money, I went to camp and was able to stick.
So you was with the team.
Yeah.
They let you stay for 3 games, and then they traded you for Jalen Rose, Travis Best, and a 2nd-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. They traded you with them.
With those guys, yeah.
For Ron Mercer, Ron Artest, a.k.a. Metta World Peace, Brad Miller, and Kevin Ollie.
Yeah.
Talk about the experience of being traded.
Man, it was a shocker to me. I was with the Pacers. I knew the team that we had, I knew I wasn't going to play much. I knew I wasn't going to get any playing time because, we had Reggie Miller on that team, Jalen Rose on that team. We had some great guard play, really good guard play. So I knew I wasn't going to play, and we were one of the better teams in the East, projected to be. And when I got there, so I was on the injured list for most of the year, just working out, doing individual workouts. And when Al Harrington went out with a knee injury, I stepped in and I started, I was on the official roster, and I didn't play much. I only played 3 games with them. And I remember before they traded me, a month before that, I had a meeting with them, and, they were speaking about re-signing me for another year. So I was kind of excited. I'm like, wow, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking that I got a chance to be with the Pacers for another year. Next year will go be different. I'm thinking like next year I'm going to have a chance to play. I'm going to work out this whole summer with them and get back into the gym, and then next year I'll get a chance to play. And Jalen Rose was having, he was having some trouble with Isaiah Thomas, who was our coach. I think they were butting heads, and they were looking to trade him. And, in order to make the deal work, they had to include me in the trade. And I had no idea. And I woke up that morning and went to the gym, and they told me that I got traded. It's not like today where you get all these tweets and all that.
Right.
Right away. I had no clue.
Everything was word of mouth.
Word of mouth. It was like I got up in the morning, I went to practice like a normal day, walked to the gym, and they sent me upstairs to see our president, Donnie Walsh, and he was like, "We traded you today." I'm like, "Traded me?" So, and I'm saying to myself, "What do I do next?" I didn't even know. And so he was like, you speak to your agent, he'll let you know the details about it, and sorry, this is part of the business, and went about my business and was off to Chicago.
So how was the other end of that season with the Bulls?
It was I got a chance to play. I got a chance to get some reps in and play. When I got out there, they gave me more of an opportunity because we weren't very good. It was a young team with, Jamal Crawford, a young Eddie Curry, a young Tyson Chandler. These guys are all young kids at the time. And so they gave me a chance to get on the floor and play. And it was really good. Chicago was a team that was used to being a first-class organization because with Michael Jordan and, that group, they was able to build that type of reputation and they knew how to treat people. So I enjoyed the city. The city of Chicago was a phenomenal city. It was a lot of fun, a lot to do. Cold, really cold, but Jalen Rose, me and him and Travis Best, we grew closer because we were traded together. So that was fun being with those guys. I was already cool with them. So being traded with the guys I was already cool with was fun. And being able to get on the court and play in the NBA, get some really good players, some of the best in the world for the Chicago Bulls was a good thing too. So I played with them to the end of the season and I stayed there for some time in the summer and played with them in summer league and after the season, they wound up, they wanted to bring me to camp without a guaranteed deal, so I wound up not going.
How was it dealing with Jerry Krause? For like everybody's seen the 10-part series, The Last Dance. Like, how was Jerry Krause? How was your dealings with Jerry Krause?
Jerry with me. He was good. I never had any issues with Jerry. He was awkward. He was an awkward man. I could see why people would think that way about him because of how he interacted with people.
Yeah.
It was very awkward, but at the same time, he gave me a chance. He gave me an opportunity when he didn't have to.
He did.
So I'm always grateful for that. And then I remember after the season, I was there for the summer for some time, and I remember I went to a White Sox game with Jerry Krause, and I had a good time with him when I went to the White Sox game. He was always cool with me. He always was a straight shooter with me. I don't know how he was with the players that he didn't have to be that way, or he was probably not as straight of a shooter with some of the guys he was with, but with me, he can be that way because I was one of the better players. I was a player that was trying to make the roster and stick on that roster. So he was always a straight shooter with me, which I appreciated. And so I got no bad things to say about Krause, but I do understand why people can get that feeling from him.
So after the Bulls, you went to Italy to play for Scavallini Pesaro. Like, talk about playing overseas in a different country.
Shell shock, culture shock. I didn't know what to expect when I went. I remember I was contemplating whether to go to camp with the Bulls or to go to Europe. And then finally, the money was too good to pass up in Europe. I mean, at that time, they were paying guys. They were overpaying guys. They were giving you all sorts of money. And, we used to get 6 first-class plane tickets, like those type of deals for, like, visitors. So we were getting really good deals. And I got a really good deal in Pesaro, and I took it. And I remember when I first got there, and when I look back at it, it was a beautiful city, right on the water, close to Bologna, some really nice places around there. But I didn't appreciate it at the time because I was so used to being in the States. I wasn't really open in my head and like my horizons and looking at things for what it really was. I was spoiled. And I got there, and I didn't enjoy my first year in Europe. I didn't enjoy my first year at all. But it was a good organization. They paid on time. They paid a lot of money, and I tried to enjoy it as much as possible. But it wasn't the best time for me. But after a certain amount of time, I started to get used to Europe. I got used to Europe. I went to France and played at all these different places, and I started to really embrace the culture wherever I was. I knew that was important to do, to come in and embrace their culture and let them know how important it was to, feel like I was included in everything they were doing. And so once I knew I was going to be playing overseas for for the rest of my, basketball career, I pretty much was able to, settle down and enjoy it. And I got a chance to, travel the world and see a lot of different places.
Talk about the overall overseas lifestyle. You got to play in France, Venezuela, Germany, Serbia, Italy. Talk about, you know, just being overseas and dealing with, organizations and advice you would give to people that want to go play overseas.
Well, every place is different. Everywhere you go is different. And I always say, like I said prior, I said you have to be able to embrace the culture. Like you gotta go, you can't get there and expect everything to be like it is in America or want it to be like it is in America. You have to be able to adjust and adapt to what they're trying to do. They're adapting to us. I mean, think about it. They're speaking a different language for us. They're speaking English in practice. So they're making adaptations and trying to work with us. So I think it's important for us to do the same. So like when I got there, like in Italy, again, I didn't give it a chance, but once I got to France, I was able to adapt and really like embrace their culture and meet people and hang out with some of the locals and become friends with some of them. And they helped me out a ton. And Poland the same way. But Germany, I think, was the biggest place for me as far as me really feeling comfortable. I developed some unbelievable relationships in Germany with people. There was a ton of American culture there with the army bases and stuff like that. So you can get that fix of going to a base and feeling like you're home. But if you didn't want to feel like that, you could just be in the culture of Germany. And I was able to learn the language when I was there as well. And I think that helped me as well, being able to communicate with people in that language and really try to embrace their culture as much as I can. So everywhere is different. I would give the advice I would give players to embrace the culture. Don't act like an outsider. Try to make sure you get cool with the local guys and let them know that that you do appreciate and respect where they're from as well, because that's important.
So you also did play in the D League with the North Charleston Low Gators and the Fayetteville Patriots. Talk about, you got to play in the NBA. Now you're playing in the D League, which was then the developmental league before they got involved with Gatorade. Talk about playing in the minor leagues.
Man, a grind. That's why when I work with our players, I always let them know I totally understand. They have it a lot. They have it way better than we had it. Now the G League is terrific. I mean, the NBA is totally involved, so they get all of the perks, that you can ask for a minor league organization to get. The time when I was playing, it was 8 teams. We were playing against one team maybe 8 to 10 times a year, 6 to 8 times a year, something crazy like that. And everywhere we were traveling, we were on buses.
Mm-hmm.
The league was just starting out, so it wasn't fully. It didn't reach its potential, nowhere near its potential at that time. And that was a league that wasn't very organized, in my opinion. A lot of selfishness, as you would expect. And teams weren't really affiliated with NBA teams at that time, so it wasn't a fun league to play in. That's why I played at a minimum in that league before heading back overseas. I didn't enjoy those leagues at all when I played in them, but I did have a chance to. I'm happy I had a chance to experience it, so now I can convey these messages to our players in the G League and let them know that I can relate to what they're going to on somewhat of a level.
So then, when you were overseas, how many languages did you pick up in all these countries?
Just one.
Which is
German, Deutsch. Yeah, I didn't give no other countries that I give a chance to. Germany was the only place that I gave it a chance. And again, I wasn't the best at it, but I was able to hold conversations with people and understand people. So, I was there, and you understand, I went to coach over there, so I had to learn the language.
Which of all the overseas countries you went to, which one did you love the most?
Germany is the one I enjoyed the most. No
so
doubt.
That's why you wanted to learn the language so much.
Yeah. I had some really good friends over there, and I got to say that it was probably the most fun I had in Europe playing when I played in Germany and lived in Germany.
So fast forward to 2016, you after coaching in Was it Germany that you coached in?
Yes, I did.
So
That was my first time.
after coaching in Germany, and then it seemed like you took a hiatus after
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you decided to coach in the G League. Like, how was it? Getting first you were playing in the D League, to now coaching in the G League. Like, talk about the experience.
Again, I remember getting back into coaching in the States and thinking how different it was, because I was used to European basketball now. I haven't watched or been involved in American type of basketball in years, since 2004 or 5, whatever year that was. So now I'm coming back to coach in the G League, which was being ran by NBA programs now, and having to learn the terminology, learn all the new systems that's been put in place, and learn how players are being developed here. It was like listen to someone speak Chinese at first, because I didn't know anything. And it's crazy being a basketball lifer. It come natural to you, but when you don't know the terminology and what people are saying, you really have to go home and study that stuff. That stuff really it becomes like it becomes difficult to teach, because you got to convey the same message that
Mm-hmm.
your NBA team is conveying to the players. And that's what you're trying to teach. So it took me some time to get readjusted to that, maybe about a month, until I was able to, like, all right, now I'm starting to feel it back again on this side of the world, coaching wise. And then once I start getting into the groove of it, I loved every bit of it. And working at that level is very, very a lot of fun. You see players, improve. Players want to get better, and I remember getting into that, and having the opportunity to coach at that level, at the G League level. My first year was really exciting, and again, I was an interim head coach that year as well, so I had a chance to do both in my first year. So that was an unbelievable experience.
So fast forward to today, you're in your probably, I think you finished your third season with the Fort Wayne Mad Ants.
That's correct.
Like, talk about the G League today.
G League today is great. It's growing every day. You have, with the sponsorship of Gatorade, and obviously economically the league has grown because of the money that it got from the sponsorships, and now you have all these affiliate teams now. Like every team in G League is affiliate with an NBA team, so that makes it even better, because now you're literally like a feeder program or for an NBA team. Like you're the developmental program for that NBA team. Now you have two-way players that they're implementing in the G League, which I think is great for young guys who's trying to develop, and it's great for the NBA teams who's trying to look for young guys to develop and eventually play in that system. I think is great, and the league, again, we fly planes almost everywhere now. If you're not on a plane, you're on a sleeper bus. So they get all of these good perks, and they pay for these guys to get college courses. They get so many different things now in the G League that we didn't get as players. And again, they're looking out for the players, and rightfully so. And hopefully they start doing the same thing for the coaches. I think the coaches in the league really work their butt off, night in and night out. Going to work from 8 a.m. and going back to the gym at 9 o'clock in the night, and staying to midnight working with players, literally with development. And I don't think the coaches in the G League are appreciated enough. I think they need to start focusing a little bit more on the coaches in the league as well, because they do a lot of stuff in that league to help these players get to where they need to go. But again, I love the league. I love coaching in the league. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about it. I'm not. It's just I just know the work that you put in that league. I just wish we were appreciated a little more as coaches in that league, because it's a tough league to coach in.
Mm-hmm. So this year you had a chance to coach both Scoochie Smith and Brian Bowen. Scoochie is obviously from the Bronx, and Brian Bowen, everybody knows his story. Talk about coaching both of them.
It was fun. Scoochie actually came to us late in the season, because he initially was playing overseas, And when he got to us, it was mid-season, I guess a month before everything shut down. But it was fun coaching Scooch. Scooch is from the Bronx, so me and Scooch connected right away. We understand each other lingo. We see eye to eye on that right away because we both know, we can speak to each other, without saying something to one another. So it was fun coaching Scooch. Scooch a hard worker, great attitude too. Scooch got an unbelievable attitude. He always came to work no matter if he was, getting the playing time, he felt he deserved or not. He came to work and he worked every day. And Brian Bone, the same thing. Brian, I think, was the most improved player on our team, like from game 1 to game 40. When we stopped playing, Brian just made gradual improvement throughout the year. I mean, he's another guy who's serious about his craft. He loves to work, very coachable. He's a guy that you can really get on, and he's gonna respond. And I love the way he was engaged. He always asked the right questions to the coaching staff, and he knew exactly what you needed to do game plan wise. So he's a very cerebral guy, smart guy, and it was a joy coaching both of them. And I wish him nothing but success moving forward.
So there's the NBA, the new G League developmental program that they have, with high school guys coming in. Yeah. How do you think that will fare, in aiding, because it's like a lot of high school kids are probably trying to do the pro thing. They're reclassifying up after reclassifying, down for the NBA purposes. Like, do you feel like it's a good decision for a lot of the kids, to try to make that move quicker, jumpstart that NBA process when they're not ready?
I mean, obviously, if they're not ready, then they, then I don't know if it's a great decision. But again, I think the G League, I think is no better place to prepare these young high school kids for NBA success or opportunities in the NBA than the G League. I mean, you're playing against, you're in a league where they treat you like a grown adult. That's what the NBA is going to do. You're getting paid a salary. So now you have a responsibility to come to work every day and work. That's what you're going to have to do in the NBA. So I think what Sharif Abdul-Rahim and Rod Strickland and those guys in the NBA have put together, I think is a really good tool for the guys who I think have the potential to go straight from high school to the NBA. I think it's a really good tool. Again, I don't know how it's going to play out. I have to see with my own two eyes, but from the stuff that I've heard and things that I've read, it seems like it's going to be a really good tool for guys to step in and really, learn the NBA game. And when they do get a chance to get drafted, they will be ready. I think more ready, and that being in the G League than they were if they were in college, because the game is just different.
Absolutely. So this is a question that I love to ask all of my guests. Okay. If you could go back to 1995, well, let me rephrase that. If you could go back in a time machine to 1995, what would you tell Norm at 15?
I would tell Norm at 15 to go to class. Go to class, you know what I mean? Because when you look back at it, it wasn't that difficult. It was just, you're just following friends of yours who weren't doing that, but they also weren't athletes. So I would say go to class and always have the right attitude. Don't do things like I did with like Doc Maselli. Like argue, and it wasn't like crazy, but just having a bad attitude towards coaching and always speaking back. Because now as a coach, I'm getting it myself, so it's payback for me now. So those are things I probably would tell myself, Dave.
Final question: what's next in the future for Norman Richardson and the Fort Wayne Mad Ants?
Oh man, I don't know, man. We take it day by day here. I try to enjoy it day by day. Whatever happens, in a day from now, a month from now, or a year from now, that's yet to be to be known to any of us. So I just try to enjoy the moment. I enjoy my time in Fort Wayne. Work with some great people, great staff, great players, great organization I play for. So, I know the people. So I enjoy that. I enjoy those moments, and I'm just looking forward to just continue to take step by step in my career. And obviously, I want to continue to coach at the highest level. So, hopefully, it leads me there one day.
Thank you so much, Norm, for coming on to share your story. And I wish you and the Mad Ants nothing but the best moving forward.
Dave, thank you so much for having me, Dave. Keep doing your thing, man. And I'm an avid supporter. I'll see you sometime, hopefully when all this, die down.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, everybody, this is episode 44 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. For all those in Coney Island that support Norm, definitely check out this episode on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Everybody stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.